The call came on a Thursday morning, and everything the nurse said was technically true. My husband had been in an accident. He was stable. He was at Mercy General. What she did not say, what I had to see for myself when I pushed back the curtain on Trauma Bay 6, was that he had not been driving alone, and that the woman in the bed next to his was wearing the earrings I had given her for her birthday. I know that detail should not be the thing I keep returning to, but when your best friend of 11 years is sitting in a hospital bed next to your husband with her silk blouse open at the collar and a blue ice pack pressed to her collarbone, wearing the gold hoops you wrapped yourself in tissue paper on her kitchen table, your mind fixates on strange, specific things. I had driven across the city with both hands tight on the wheel, running the only mental routine that calms me. What do I know? What don't I know? What do the gaps tell me? My husband Grant is 38 years old. He drives a Range Rover he bought to impress investors at job sites. He is careful with expensive things. He has never, in 7 years of marriage, been the kind of man who gets into accidents. The attending physician stopped me outside the trauma bay and gave me the careful, weighted look I have come to recognize. She said there had been a passenger. She said minor injuries. She said I should be prepared before going in. I pushed back the curtain. Grant was in the bed nearest the door. A butterfly closure above his right eyebrow, his left wrist in a soft brace. He looked up when I came through, and his face moved through 3 phases so quickly that someone who did not know him would have missed the first 2. I have spent 9 years as a senior investigator for the State Insurance Fraud Bureau. I caught all 3. Caught, calculating, composed. In the second bed sat Faye. 11 years. She had been in the second row at my wedding. When my father had his stroke 3 years ago and I could not stop shaking in the waiting room, she had taken both my hands and said, "I've got you." She said it twice. I had believed her completely. She looked at me from across the trauma room and did not look away. There was no guilt in her expression and no apology. Just that familiar openness, the same face she had been showing me since junior year of college, as if she were exactly where she was supposed to be and had nowhere else to be at all. I noticed the earrings, my credit card receipt, my kitchen table on her birthday. Grant said, "This is not what it looks like." I have heard that sentence from people who have committed fraud, embezzlement, and perjury. I have never once heard it from someone telling the truth. I said nothing. He said we needed to handle this privately. He said not to make a scene in front of the staff. He said it the way he said most things he wanted from me. Not exactly asking, not quite telling. Somewhere in the space where he had always found easiest to operate. I walked to the foot of his bed and looked at him. I wanted to see if he was ashamed. He was not. He looked mildly inconvenienced. His parents arrived 20 minutes later. My mother-in-law came through the double doors with her coat still on and walked past me without slowing. She pressed both hands to Grant's face. She said his name. She said, "I came as fast as I could, sweetheart. How bad is it?" My father-in-law stopped inside the doorway, surveyed the room, and made a choice in about 4 seconds. He crossed to Faye's bedside. He asked if she was comfortable. He asked if there was someone he could call. My mother-in-law turned from Grant and looked at me. She has been giving me that particular look for 7 years. Not hostile, exactly. More like the assessing look of someone who hired you provisionally and has been quietly waiting for a reason to reconsider. She said, "Thea, I think it would be best for everyone if you went home. He needs to rest." I said I would leave when I was ready. She looked at my face. She turned back to Grant. I went to the family waiting area. I sat in a plastic chair near a vending machine and did not cry. I have nothing against crying. I simply could not afford it. I called my mother. I told her what I had walked into. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Are you sure you're not reading into it?" She said, "Grant has always been so good to this family." She said, "Thea, these things look different from the outside than they actually are." I told her I loved her. I hung up. The charge nurse told me Grant's personal effects were available since I was his listed emergency contact. She handed me the plastic bag with a look that was almost an apology. His wallet, his keys, his phone. His phone was cracked across the lower left corner. The screen still worked. His passcode has been our wedding anniversary, since the week he set it. He told me he chose it because he never wanted to forget the date. I thought that was one of the things I loved about him. The thread with Faye was at the top of his inbox. It was not hidden in a separate app or buried under an alias. It was simply there, under her name and her photo, a photograph I recognized because I had taken it. All three of us, the summer before last, standing in front of a canyon, his arm around my shoulder, both of us squinting into the sun. I read it the way I read case files, linearly, carefully, noting patterns and flagging anomalies. I did that for about 12 minutes. Then I found the hotel reservation in Charleston. The conference Grant had attended without me. The same weekend, Faye had canceled our Sunday brunch because she said she wasn't feeling well. After that, I stopped reading like an investigator, but I kept reading. The most recent messages were from 5 days before the accident. Faye had written, "What happens when she figures it out?" Grant had written, "She won't, and even if she does, it won't matter." The Hartfield transfer cleared Tuesday. By the time any attorney sends a discovery request, there won't be anything liquid left to find. She'll spend 6 months chasing paper on shell companies and end up taking whatever I offer. Faye had written, "Are you sure she won't see it coming?" Grant had written, "She reviews insurance claim forms for the government. Missing the big picture is basically her whole job. It's always been her thing." I put his phone on my thigh and sat very still. Outside the waiting room windows, an ambulance pulled in with its lights cutting silently through the afternoon. Somewhere down the hall, a monitor beeped in a slow, steady pattern. I opened my banking app. The joint investment account, 6 years of combined deposits, salary bonuses, the month we skipped vacation and put the money in instead, every overtime check I had earned across nearly a decade of work, $358,000 as of last Friday. Current balance, $7,480. Single outgoing wire, Tuesday morning, recipient, Hartfield Property Solutions LLC, amount $350,000, status cleared. I sat in that waiting area for another moment. I breathed. Something shifted in me, not loudly, not in the way grief usually moves, more like a temperature change. Like something that had been soft becoming something else entirely. I felt it happen and I let it settle. I was going to need it. I called Rochelle from the parking garage. She is a family law attorney. We met in a graduate evidence seminar 15 years ago and have been close friends since. She answered before the second ring. I gave her the name of the LLC. I heard her keys clicking while she pulled the Secretary of State filing. 2 managing members, she said. I know one of them, I said. Your husband, she said, and a co-registrant named Faye. Co-managing members filed 9 months ago. I drove home. I walked through the house slowly, room by room. I opened the safe in the back of the closet, my passport. My grandmother's ring, a thin garnet band she wore on her right hand until her fingers would no longer cooperate, and then she pressed it into my palm and said, "Keep this somewhere safe," her gold chain, a photograph of her wearing both of them when she was younger than I am now. I put everything in my bag. Then I opened my work laptop. The State Insurance Fraud Bureau uses a shared case management system accessible to senior investigators at my clearance tier. I searched Hartfield Property Solutions LLC. The file appeared in 31 seconds. Hartfield had been flagged 8 months ago by our commercial fraud division. Inflated repair claims on commercial properties, a pattern of ownership transfers between related shell entities occurring immediately before alleged damage events. Classic architecture, the kind designed to look complicated from the outside while being structurally very simple once you know where to look. The lead investigator had documented the pattern across 4 properties. The case was still open. My husband had been committing insurance fraud on his own commercial portfolio. His shell company had an active file in my bureau for 8 months. He had told his girlfriend that his wife reviewed insurance claim forms for the government and missed the big picture, that it was her whole job, her thing. He was not entirely wrong about my job. He had simply never asked what I actually look for. Rochelle was at my kitchen table within the hour, legal pad open, coffee already made. We talked for 2.5 hours. By the time we were done, I had a plan. It was not complicated. The best plans rarely are. Find the seam. Apply pressure at the right point. Let the structure tell on itself. Grant expected me to fight him for the money. He had built the situation specifically to make that fight expensive and slow. Accounts emptied, assets dispersed, corporations layered inside corporations designed to exhaust anyone who had to untangle them from a position of financial desperation. He expected months of litigation. He expected me to settle for whatever fraction he was willing to offer, just to make it stop. So I did not fight. Through Rochelle, I proposed mediation. I made the proposed settlement look simple. I appeared to concede generously on the visible assets. I responded quickly and without apparent strategy, which confirmed everything Grant had already decided about me: that I was reliable, that I was soft, that I had always been easier to push than to push back. He agreed to mediate without his own attorney present. He said it was a formality. He signed the settlement agreement in 11 minutes at a conference table downtown. Rochelle told me later he checked his phone twice and left his coffee untouched because he was in a hurry to make a lunch meeting. He did not read page 8. Page 8 contained an indemnification clause. In it, Grant affirmed under penalty of perjury that he held sole and exclusive control over all financial transactions conducted through Hartfield Property Solutions LLC, and that I had zero knowledge of, involvement in, or liability for any of the company's activities or operations. He initialed it beside a small yellow tab. He handed Rochelle the pen back with the kind of smile I had seen him use at deal closings. Satisfied, magnanimous, the face of a man who had just won something he had already mentally spent. That afternoon, I submitted the executed settlement agreement, the wired transfer records, the full text message thread from his cracked phone, and a formal investigative referral cross-linking our bureau's existing Hartfield case file to the county district attorney's office. The referral was filed at 4:17. The criminal indictment came down on a Tuesday. The arrest warrant was executed on a Thursday evening. I learned about it from Rochelle, who sent me a link to the Regional Business Journal's website. Grant had been scheduled to present a new development partnership proposal at a quarterly investor dinner at the Meridian Club, one of those private dining rooms with soft lighting and leather chairs where he had always been most comfortable, surrounded by people who needed something he claimed to have. He had gone ahead with the dinner, confident and unhurried, because nothing in his life had ever suggested to him that Thursday would be different from any other Thursday. The federal agents came in during his presentation. The photograph the journal ran showed him in the parking lot outside the club. His jacket had slipped off one shoulder. He was speaking with a federal officer with the posture of a man encountering, for the first time, a room he could not negotiate his way out of. I did not need to be there. I already had what I needed before he walked through those doors. Faye's co-conspirator's status was detailed in the indictment. Her contractor's license was suspended pending the criminal proceedings. The $350,000 frozen in the Hartfield account was returned to me under court-ordered asset recovery, which, per the document Grant had initialed in 11 minutes, he had formally surrendered all rights to contest. My grandmother's ring is on the windowsill above the kitchen sink. I see it every morning when I make coffee. I bought a small plant for the counter next to it. I have kept both of them alive for coming up on a year now. Rochelle and I have lunch every other Wednesday. She orders the same salad every time and always says she is going to try something different next week. Faye sent me a letter from her sister's house in Arizona, about 4 months after the indictment. She said she had made choices she couldn't explain. She said she hoped I would understand one day. I put the letter in a folder. I may read it again sometime when it costs less to do so. Here is what 9 years of this work have taught me. People who steal almost never believe they are stealing. They have a story about what they deserve, about who was holding them back, about how the person they are taking from never truly appreciated what they had. The story feels true from the inside. It has been rehearsed so thoroughly that it has taken on the weight of fact. What they never account for is the person on the other side of the table who has spent years learning how constructed things differ from true ones. Who knows what a lie looks like when it is under pressure? Who can find the point where the architecture gives? Grant thought I missed the forest for the trees. He had known me for 7 years and had never once asked what kind of forest I actually work in. My name is Thea. I am 33 years old. I have spent my career learning exactly how people hide things and exactly where hidden things leave marks. Grant thought he was concealing his life from me. He was hiding it in my case files.